Welcome to Books on Point. Last year, investigative journalist Pieter-Louis Myburgh ventured deep into Ace Magashule's dealings from his time as a struggle activist in the 1980s to his powerful rule as Premier of the Free State province for nearly a decade. The book Gangster State was described as an unflinching examination of the ANC's top leadership in the post-Jacob Zuma era. The book won him the 2020 Taco Kuiper Award for investigative journalism, and he joins us on the line. Pieter, thank you so much for your time and congratulations.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, and thanks for the invitation.
So let's talk about this book. I mean, not a lot of people have a second book that does just as well as the first book. And considering the challenges that you experienced last year when it came to finding a venue for the launch date and all kinds of things that happened, looking back, take us through the journey since the book actually launched.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, it's quite difficult to believe it's more than a year since that a very dramatic launch period of the book. Can't believe how quickly time has flown. And it's actually been quite a journey. You know, there's been some positives and a couple of negatives. I think firstly the positives is that, you know, a book like that does draw a lot of attention in South Africa, and I think that speaks to the very healthy interest that South Africans have in current affairs, especially issues that really have an implication, you know, an impact on the lives of ordinary South Africans and taxpayers in general. But unfortunately, you know, a year on, I think it's quite disturbing and worrying to note that the National Prosecuting Authority and the Hawks haven't really acted on yet in terms of arrests or prosecutions on any of the instances where there seems to be very clear evidence pointing to corrupt contracts involving this individual.
Well, for those who may not have had the opportunity to get the book, and I suppose this lockdown period allows many to be able to go to their bookstore and get a copy of their book, what lies at the heart of this book that you'd want viewers to know?
Yeah, look, I think investigative journalism, you know, has this kind of central, you know, duty almost to look at cases where public monies especially, or resources that are meant to benefit South Africans in general, get diverted for personal gain and personal enrichment. I think that really lies at the heart of Gangster State. You know, I go, apart from the kind of historic look at the character of, you know, the examination of Mr. Magashule's background in the struggle, you know, I really spend the bulk of the book looking at his time in office as Premier of the Free State, and then these instances where, you know, lucrative contracts that should have really benefited people on the ground were essentially hijacked to enrich a very small band of political elites close to Mr. Magashule, including his own family members and former business associates.
A lot of us may not be familiar with the work of investigative journalists such as yourself and authors who put together such a brave body of work. How challenging is it to be able to come up with a topic for this book and the process? Perhaps you can let us in on the journey of putting a book like this.
Yeah, certainly. Look, I think firstly it's always important to, when you tackle and digest and unpack these kind of issues, you know, some of them can be quite complex. You know, it's issues of governance and procurement, you know, public expenditure. You can run the risk of bogging yourself down in a lot of technicality. And I think it's really important, it's essential for the investigative journalist, or any journalist really, to make these findings, you know, these public interest issues, as palatable and digestible as possible. So I think that really was one of the sort of founding tasks that I set for myself, was to ensure that these issues were laid out in a manner that would really, you know, hit home when members of the public just reads about these issues.
Pieter, perhaps you could share with us the state of investigative journalism as you see it in South Africa. We've seen so many books put together that at least piece together bits of the state capture story. There's probably a lot more that will be revealed in the coming months or years to come. But the role of investigative journalism at this point?
Yeah, look, I think it's an essential, now that the term essential services has become kind of a buzzword, I think in the broader sort of setup, you know, investigative journalism is an essential service in South Africa, you know, especially if you consider that over the last decade, maybe decade and a half, the law enforcement authorities weren't always on the scene when it came to, large-scale corruption scandals, it was investigative journalists who really brought those issues to the fore, and I think that really points to the health of investigative journalism in South Africa. It's an industry that does face enormous challenges, and some of these challenges do relate to the broader kind of challenges faced by the media as a whole, shrinking newsrooms, budget constraints, and so on. But I do think, if you look at, for instance, the Taco Kuiper Award for this year again, there were 24 entrants and about 11 were sort of highlighted for their exceptional quality. And that really points to the fantastic scope and reach of investigative journalism in South Africa. It might be a relatively small industry, but I think it really punches above its weight, and it really goes a long way in ensuring that ordinary South Africans, once again, have access to vital information about the way that their government manages resources on their behalf.
Pieter, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Let's leave it there. That is Pieter-Louis Myburgh joining us on the line and talking about his win for the book he published last year titled Gangster State, which you can still get. But that's it from me for Books on Point. That's a wrap from the News at One team, and we'll be back with you tomorrow. But for now, we'll have your news headlines after the break. Goodbye.